So it is time to prepare to trade the best setups at the best prices. The stock market is currently having a massive gap up during the extended hours trading session. I'm going to be explaining to you the best key levels to be trading heading into this week, along with the most likely outcome heading into tomorrow. So in terms of the newly updated price action analysis, the SPY ended up closing at 564.34. As you can see, we are currently having a massive gap up at 572.50. So in terms of the first key level to be buying call options, it's going to be at 564.34. Is very unlikely to hit heading into tomorrow, but in terms of this week, I'll keep you updated on that. As of now, that would be considered a break and retest in a gap close reversal level. In terms of the most likely outcome heading into tomorrow, it is signaling based off of the 10-day 30-minute chart pattern that we are going to have a strong gap and go. Now, what I dislike about this overall signal in terms of this overall pattern that I'm seeing is, we're currently at some overbought levels and the SPY has already had such a massive gap up. When I'm looking to use the gap and go strategy, I like to focus on more oversold levels, and I don't like when SPY is just having this massive gap up when the massive move is already playing out to an extent. I don't like chasing in certain situations. However, in terms of the overall, 10-day, 30-minute chart, it is signaling that the most likely outcome is going to be a gap and go, and we're likely going to have to be buying at higher levels. So in that particular situation, it's going to be a key to use key times and the best confirmations. So, in terms of the most likely outcome heading into tomorrow, I'm likely going to have to trade differently than I would normally approach the overall market, especially if I'm seeing the confirmations at the particular times and levels. So the key time for a gap and go would be very early into the market open. And in terms of the key levels, I'm going to get into that shortly. But in terms of going into the market heading into tomorrow, with the most likely outcome factored in, I'm well aware that I'm likely going to have to be buying at more overbought levels, and there's a right way to do that and there's a wrong way to do that. You can use the best confirmations and use proper key timeframes. And when SPY is extremely overbought for the micro and it's signaling that it's just going to keep on having gap and go, one strategy that you can look to use when buying at higher levels is a break and retest. You would just look for the SPY to have a 2-point or the bigger, the better of breakout, right? Look for a massive overreaction above a resistance level that developed throughout the day or even throughout the chart history. And once it drops back down to retest that level, you're going to want to buy calls at that particular level, which is a strategy that I'll be using at higher levels heading into tomorrow. So the number one focus is going to be call options. In terms of the pattern that I'm seeing on the 10-day, 30-minute chart, this is what it looks like to me. It looks like, the SPY is crunching. You got this launch pad. The SPY is crunching. You got this launch pad. And then as it's having this gap up, it's just a gap and go the next day. And in terms of the best levels to buy calls, it was at break and retest levels. There was some resistance right here at 565, resistance for like 90 minutes. Once it had a nice, almost 2-point breakout, drop back down to retest, buy calls, right? So heading into tomorrow, I'll be looking for signals that, support is holding earlier into the morning. We're pushing for new highs earlier into the morning. Those are all signals that it's going to be a strong gap and go, and that I'm going to have to adjust and buy at higher levels than I would normally want to, and play for a gap and go, which is something that I particularly don't like doing, especially on big gap ups. But it could be something like this where it's just this overall, slow, choppy trend day, and we just look at key resistance levels, not just within the game plan, but within tomorrow's chart. We just study where the SPY is pulling back for like an hour or so. And then once it spikes above the resistance, drops back down to retest, buy calls, right? What I'm explaining to you is the most likely outcome. Doesn't mean that this is going to happen, but we're all aware of, how to use this information and how to identify if this is repeating, how to confirm if the most likely outcome is repeating. Like I said, into the morning, you're looking for just support to overall be holding. You're looking for new highs and then breakouts and retest, right? So it could be something like that in that particular situation where the massive move has played out to an extent and we go up a couple points, and within those couple points, you can look to buy calls into a market open dip, or you can look to play it safe in a sense, wait for more confirmation, break above resistance, drop back down to retest, and then buy calls, right? As long as we're holding some support in the morning, not just flushing, and then we start to spike for new highs, drop back down to retest, break and retest for calls, spike for new highs, drop back down to retest previous resistance, buy calls, right? If you want to get a sense on how you can potentially play this, you can literally just go back to May 2nd. Just go back to May 2nd of 2025 and just look at the 30-minute chart, because this could potentially be one of the most likely outcomes. If you're seeing a similar pattern forming, just use the break and retest and use the times as confirmations. That's one of the things that I'll be using personally heading into tomorrow. One of the things that I'll be looking for, right? Now, with that being said, let's discuss the levels, man. Let's discuss the levels. So in terms of some levels, obviously 564.34 into this week would be one of the best levels for calls. The SPY has been consistently reversing at every single gap. This is now considered an oversold level and a break and retest level and a gap close reversal level. So later into this week, interested in calls at 564.34. Also interested in calls at 561.13 if that hits this week for a gap close reversal. Also interested in 554 to auto buy calls for a gap close reversal. Those three levels are gap close reversals and break and retest levels. In terms of the lower the level, the more oversold it is, but it gets far more advanced than that, right? But I'm obviously interested in buying calls at those particular levels. Just use confirmations and just understand that the lower ones are especially considered, auto buy levels at 554 and 558 and 561 and 565. Those would be the main ones if we were to drop back to the oversold levels. Now let's discuss higher levels. So in terms of higher levels, an interesting level to keep an eye on is going to be this break and retest level. We have 3 break and retest levels that you're going to want to watch heading into tomorrow. 567.50 to 568. If you watched the last video, I told you we were likely going to drop first once the SPY test this break and retest level for the first time, this 567.50, once it tested for the first time, right? And surely enough, we had red, green, red, a bearish pattern right here, this red, green, red, resistance for 90 minutes, and then the SPY ended up selling off. So the most likely outcome ended up happening in that particular situation where we were likely to drop first once we test this breakdown retest, right? So now that we're gapping up and going, it's now considered bullish in a break and retest level. So instead of puts at 567.50, now the most likely outcome has switched from puts to calls. I told you in the last video, most likely outcome, even if the trend were considered bullish, is we drop first at 567.50 because it's a breakdown retest. Well, now since we gapped up above it, it's considered a breakout and retest, right? We had the gap up, we had the breakout above this resistance. Once we drop back down to retest, we're likely going to form a floor and bounce first at 568 to 567.50. So that would be a key level for calls. Another key zone to watch for calls is going to be a higher break and retest level that we've gapped up above. 569 and 570. In between that overall zone is going to be a key level of interest to be buying call options as well. Now, what we're going to do from here is we're going to go back throughout the 180-day 30-minute chart, identify new resistance levels, and then we'll also take a look at the daily chart. So let's see. Right now we're at 572. We're going to go back throughout the chart history, and we're going to look for above that. So let me zoom in on this overall range right here. So this 570 was once a major resistance level. As long as that reacts to support, we're going to see that strong overall move to 576. As long as we are maintaining above this 570, we're going to get that strong overall move heading into tomorrow to the 575 to 576 range. So as long as we're holding above 570, it's a strong confirmation, a strong signal that we're going to have that strong gap and go heading into tomorrow, where it's just going to be break and retest opportunities. You're just going to be looking for resistance levels, right? Heading into the market open tomorrow, look for 1 to 2 point breakouts above those resistance levels. Once we drop back down to previous resistance, buy calls, ride it up to 575, 576. That zone should hit as long as we are staying above and holding 571 plus. So remember, as long as we're holding above the 570s, we're going to be on pace to go to 575 to 576. And if we're holding above that earlier in today, it's going to be strong bullish and breakouts, and just look for breakout and retest opportunities. Look for dips to be buying, right? So like I said, man, that overall make or break level is going to be that like 570 to 571. As long as we are above that, we're going to fucking fly to 576, right? Next level above 571 is going to be right around here towards this, let's see, next resistance level right around here towards 570. Let's see, let's get a clear confirmation here. 573. Next level above 571 would be 573. Like I said, as long as we're holding above 571, we're going to see 576. 573 is the next level. Next level above 573 is going to be 575 mid to 576, right? Now, if we just take a quick look at the overall daily chart, in terms of the overall daily chart, you're going to see, man, this literally reflects exactly what I just said. This is the key. So in terms of this idea of the SPY having a massive gap and go where it doesn't come crashing back down, this is the fucking key, is right here. All of the resistance is at this 570 where the SPY has these massive pullbacks. If we go under that, it's going to drop back down to those breakout and retest levels, and it's going to try to bounce first. You know, the higher levels that I gave you, 569, and then the other one was 567.50, right? Now, as long as we are holding above 570 heading into tomorrow, we will go up to the next resistance level. The next resistance level is going to be all the way up here towards this 576 range. This is the next level. So as long as we are holding above 570s into the morning, getting new highs, ideally by like 10:30, 11 a.m., it's just going to be an overall bullish day, breaks and retest. It could be at the levels that I gave you, 571, 573. But more importantly, in this particular situation, you just need to look for resistance. Look for some sort of resistance. Once the SPY breaks above the resistance, wait for it to drop back down to the previous resistance, right? In terms of my levels, just mainly understand that as long as we are above 570, we're heading to 576. It's going to be a strong gap and go. And what you need to do is you need to identify your own resistance levels. It could potentially be at the ones I gave you, 571 to 573. But in this particular situation, it's more important that you identify your own resistance levels, right? Just look where SPY is selling off on the 30-minute chart. Look where resistance is forming. Once it breaks above, wait for the SPY to drop back down. Buy the retest, ride it up. Eventually, it should get new highs for an overall break in retest, right? So as long as we're holding above that 570, we're going to be going to 576 range, right? That's the main thing that you need to understand here, man. We hold above 570, we go to 576. If we start to go below 570, we start to drop back down to the mid 560s, and you look for break and retest reversals in that particular situation, right? But for this overall strong bullish trend day, we need to hold above 570s. We need to be forming some support, right? We could potentially see a little dip in the morning. That's going to be normal if we get a little drop in the morning. But we need to form some support, get new highs. And then when we start to get those new highs, if it happens, just look for break and retest. If you're seeing a morning dip, or if you're just seeing new highs within time past 11 a.m., we're getting new highs, we're holding above 570, look for break and retest throughout the whole entire day for a strong overall bullish close, right? So those are the overall ranges. In terms of later this week, you know, above 576, we got 580. Best level for puts is going to be this gap right here at 583. Basically the highest gap that is waiting, one of the highest gaps that is waiting to fill above. This is the third. You know, there's a gap right here. Well, that one's already been filled, so that's actually the second highest. This is the highest right here at 610, right? So that's for the future level, man. But I'm telling you, best level for puts this week as of now is going to be 583. You got major resistance and a gap close reversal, and the SPY has been consistently reversing at the gaps. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down the ladder here for you. In terms of the ladder, you know, once these levels hit, so 554, this is a breakout, this is a retest, that's a gap close reversal, automatically buying calls at the 555 range. Next level above that is going to be 558. That's a strong support level. Interested in looking at calls down there. Next level above that is a gap close reversal, break and retest level. Resistance right here. This is the breakout, retest, and then a gap close reversal. 561. Interested in calls there. 565, break and retest gap, close reversal level. Interested in calls there. Another break and retest level that it's likely going to bounce first at 567.50. And a higher break and retest level is going to be 569 to 569.50. Key resistance we already broke above and formed a floor, 571. If we hold above 570, we go to 576. The level in between 570 and 576 is like 573. That's the level in between, right? Above 576, 580, key resistance, 583, gap, close reversal. So use the ladder to your advantage. And in terms of the most likely outcome, just understand there is a pattern that I'm seeing that is signaling is likely going to be an overall strong gap and go day. Now, from a technical view, what I dislike about that is, we're towards some overbought levels, and we're not just towards some overbought levels. What I dislike about buying into a gap and go, first of all, I'm not the one who likes buying into breakouts, I like to wait for strong breaks above resistance, and then it drops back down to retest, and then I buy the dip that way rather than buying into a breakout. So first of all, I don't even like buying into breakouts. And what I don't like even more than that is buying into a gap and go, because it already had such a massive move to the upside and you got all this empty space, right? If it were to crack 571, there's no fucking support. So it's going to start to drop back down and start to fill the gap, right? We're all well aware of that. If one of the levels reacts bearish, we go down to the next level. If one of the levels reacts bullish, we go up to the next level. You have to actually know how to fucking trade and use confirmations. You can't just blindly trade patterns or most likely outcomes. But it is important in terms of a trade idea to identify trade ideas, to identify most likely outcomes. That way, in terms of our skill sets of traders, if we see a confirmation to trade that overall idea, that history is starting to repeat itself, we can take advantage of that overall history of that overall trade idea, right? And then if not, we know how to trade the levels. We know how to trade the other strategies, right? So just want to bring awareness to all that, in terms of my style heading into tomorrow, with the best pattern that I'm seeing and the most likely outcome. What I dislike about it, in terms of my style, is I'm not the one to buy into breakouts and to buy into big gap and goes. I don't like doing that, but I'm well aware how to trade in that situation. Now I'm going to be extremely meticulous with my confirmations heading to tomorrow, because this isn't my favorite, type of way of trading. But in terms of the pattern, the confirmation, the signal that I'm picking up on, it is saying that the most likely outcome is considered to be a gap and go. So like I said, the way that I'm going to approach it with my style of trading as someone who doesn't like buying into like overbought gap and goes, overbought, resistance levels and stuff like that, what I'm going to be looking for is strong confirmations of that pattern to repeat itself. So in terms of that pattern that I'm explaining to you to repeat itself, it's normal if we dip into the morning. If we start to drop a little bit for like the first hour, that's normal, right? But we need to hold above 570s. As long as we're holding above 570s, I'm bullish. As long as we are above 570, my number one focus, if we are above 570s, is to buy calls and is likely going to have a strong bullish trend day, right? In terms of the pattern that I'm seeing, I will be looking at times. So if we're starting to dip and bottom out at around 10:30 a.m., and then we're hitting new highs by like 11:30 to 12, those are going to be very strong confirmations that is going to happen. And in terms of those particular confirmations, the way I will be doing this is I'll be using the break and retest strategy, right? So I'll identify some resistance levels. So right here, you can see that level that I gave you at 573. It's already trying to react as a resistance level during extended hours. So I'm going to identify resistance levels. And then when there's a 1 to 2 point, a 1 to 2 point spike, the bigger the better, above the resistance, a breakout, I wait for it to drop back down to that previous resistance level where it had that breakout, buy the retest, buy the dip, right? That's how I'm going to be buying the dips. I'm just going to be, I'm going in with understanding of what can happen and that these are overbought levels, and I don't want to buy into the breakouts, because if I buy into the breakouts, it can just drop right back down. I can get faked out. So I'm just going to wait for a strong 1-2 point plus breakout, wait for it to drop back down to that previous resistance, buy the dip for a break and retest. And in terms of this pattern that I'm looking at, I'm looking for, it's like I said, it's normal if we drop first for like the first hour, but if we're just starting to bottom out at around like 10:30, 11 a.m., and then we're starting to push for new highs around 11:30, 12 p.m., strong confirmations to literally just use the break and retest strategy. There could potentially be 2 to 4 trades with the break and retest strategy heading into tomorrow. So like I said, man, as long as we are above 570, this level right here, as long as we are fucking above, I have zero fucking interest in fucking puts. If you want to try a scalp against the overall potential bullish trend, one thing you can do is you can look for a quick play. This is like a bonus idea. It could potentially be a YOLO against the overall trend, right? Because like I said, overall trend's bullish as long as we're above 570. But based off that pattern that I saw, we could potentially drop first in the morning. So if you like, if you're seeing bearish 30-minute candlestick confirmations, during the pre-market session, and we're towards major resistance, and the major resistance levels, I mean, ideally, if you're doing this, like I said, there'd have to be bearish 30-minute candlestick confirmations in the pre-market. In terms of best levels, true best levels, 573 is the middle. It's not the best level, but the true best levels would be 575 to 576, 579 to 580, and 583. Those would be the genuine best levels to be buying puts for a quick scalp in the morning where the SPY can drop. Like I said, man, it's healthy too. If we're gapping up this fucking big in the morning, it's a healthy pullback. If we get it that early, that's even better, man, because at some point the SPY has to pull back. So if it's going to be an overall strong bullish trend day, is best to happen in the morning. That would be the best time to literally happen. And then you can, try to buy that dip towards some key levels I gave you on a break and retest, right? I mean, this level right now, this is technically considered a new break and retest level, this 571.50, man, that 571 to 571.50 zone, right? So just understand, man, we could potentially have a morning dip first. You can look for best levels for puts for a quick scalp against the overall trend, 576. If you're seeing bearish 30-minute candlestick confirmations in the morning, it doesn't have to necessarily be a level. It could just be a confirmation and you just buy puts in that particular situation. And just understand, as long as, we're just holding some support, if you see like the SPY has, wherever the fuck it dropped, if you see that it's just held support for like an hour in the morning and it's just holding and then we start the break above new highs, just keep on using the break and retest strategy. Just keep on identifying new resistance levels, wait for the breaks above the levels, wait for the drop back down, wait for the retest, use the break and retest strategy, man. So I explained to you the most likely outcome. I explained to you what to look for in terms of that pattern, that trade idea to repeat itself, right? And if it doesn't repeat itself, if nothing's in alignment to what I'm saying, there's no confirmations, the times are off, it's not holdable, then we're going to have to trade the levels. We're going to have to trade the levels with the 30-minute chart candlestick confirmations, use the breakdown retest strategy to confirm if it's bearish. If we go under a level, spike back up, reacts as a resistance, bearish confirmations, then buy the puts. If we go above a level, drop back down, break and retest, then buy the calls. Use the 30-minute candlestick patterns. And then in terms of like strategies that I have for you, if the game plan, if the trade idea isn't in alignment, if we're not getting the proper confirmations and the times it's not playing out similar to what I said, then you could use strategies at other levels. There's a break and retest level right here at 569 to 570. There's a break and retest right here at 567.50. That is a very strong level where I'm extremely confident we're going to bounce first. It's lower, it's more oversold, and the 567.50 breakdown and retest reacted as a resistance. So now with this strong move up, once we do drop back down to 567.50, is likely going to bounce first and do the inverse. Instead of a breakdown retest, it's going to have that breakout, drop back down retest, and now reverse for calls, right? Plus its extended hours resistance that was not tested on the retest during the normal trading hours once we drop back down at 567.50. So that's going to be a strong level. Another great strategy is the gap close reversal strategy. It's the best strategy you can use from a technical view. 565 gap close reversal here. 561 gap close reversal right here, and 554. So like I said, man, those are other strategies that you can use and other levels that you can trade at. I explained to you the most likely outcome, and if it's not aligned, if you're not seeing it, if it's not reacting accordingly, then we're not going to be trading the most likely outcome. We're going to be trading literally the strategies, the levels, breakdown, retest, right? If history isn't repeating in a similar cycle to this most likely outcome, then it's irrelevant. Sometimes these patterns, these trade ideas are going to be completely irrelevant, and that's completely fine as long as you're aware of how to determine if it's relevant or not, if it's repeating in a similar cycle or not, right? The point of the patterns and the trade ideas in that sense, would be able to show you something that can likely repeat itself. And if you're seeing, the same loop, this similar cycle beginning to repeat itself, you now have a foundation that the overall trend could be bullish for the day, what strategies to be using, break and retest, what to look for, key times and stuff like that. But like I said, if it's not aligning with what I'm putting out, you need to have that heightened awareness and realize, this trade idea, this pattern, it's not repeating in a similar cycle. So like I said, if it's not repeating in a similar cycle, we're going to be trading the strategies, we're going to be trading the confirmations, we're going to be trading the levels as more of a ladder, Me personally, I like when everything's within my favor. I like when I see a most likely outcome and then there's confirmations at the most likely outcome and there's clear levels at the most likely outcome. I like when everything's stacked within my favor, when a clear pattern, a clear trade idea is repeating in a similar cycle. Not that I need that as a foundation. It's definitely preferred though, and a lot easier in a sense to trade that way, where it's like you're literally just mirroring history repeating itself. And then people wonder like, well, how are you so accurate? It's because like the pattern is literally based off history repeating itself. And I figured out a way how to trade where history is literally repeating to an exact fucking T, the way I confirm it and identify it. I know exactly what to look for. If it's repeating a similar way, I know how to catch the trend. You don't have to be the first one to capture a trend within the stock market to get rich. You just have to follow the overall trend using the right asset class, which is what we do. So if you're serious about trading alongside us, is going to be the first link down below within the description. We trade far out of the money 0-day option contracts. We're known for selling them deep in the money for the biggest percentage gains. And, we have the highest win rate in the game doing this. We absolutely crushed it on Friday, man. In terms of Friday, we had several fucking wins on fucking Friday. I mean, it was seven fucking wins in a row on Friday, man. I'm telling you, this is the best real-time 0-day options train alert system on the fucking planet. You gain access to a real-time 0-day options train alert system. You gain access to our secured private network and community, where you can network and trade alongside us. And it's the first link down below in the description. Like I said, we buy cheap, low risk, 0-day option contracts. We're known for selling them deep in the money for the biggest percentage gains. We have the highest win rate doing this. And in terms of risk management 101, you get to learn all of this in the group by experiencing this in real time and trading alongside us. But in terms of Team Roar, one of the basics to risk management 101 is these trades, like 50 cents a contract multiplied by 100 is $50 a contract. So in that particular situation, what you need to understand is you're risking $50 per contract. And the most you lose is what you put into the contract. If it expires worthless and goes to zero, the absolute most you can lose is what you put into the contract, right? You get to decide on how much you want to put into it. So you can get started with just one contract, and we have days where there's like 10, 15 trades in a single day. I mean, if you take all the trades on the entire week, it could be like 40 to 60 trades some weeks, right? So there's a lot of fucking trades, right? So it's a cheap, low risk way to make the biggest dollar gains and percentage gains within the market, right? So like I said, man, your max risk per trade, what you put into the trade is the most you lose. And you can get started with one contract. Every contract you buy, you can make a $100 to $200 profit. During power hour, if you're trading SPX, pay a little bit more sometimes, you can make $300, $500, $1,000 plus a contract, right? So now you know what you can make just by buying one contract you can get started with. And, in that particular situation, your max risk per trade is a couple percentage of your account. And you don't want to go in terms of your max drawdown, the absolute most you risk on a day. If you have a red day, don't go below 5 to 7%. You don't want to go under 5 to 7%. If you have a red day and you're down 5 to 7%, just force yourself to stop trading. You don't want to go below that. It's just too big of a drawdown to try and recover from them. It's not stable, right? So, you you're going to see we're literally green every single day. And the percentage gains always outweigh the percentage losses. And another thing that we do with our overall system is we, you need to understand there's no stop losses. So one of the ways on how we're able to win a lot is by trading the trend. When you trade the trend and buy a cheap, low risk, far out of the money option contract that expires the same day, but it's not far enough to where it's not going to go in the money, but it's still cheap. What happens is eventually the trend goes in your favor and the contract goes in the money. So we've been in trades where we're down sometimes like 90%. And when we are down that much, 70% of the time, the trade comes back to life and it goes in the money. It goes in the money. It rises out of the ashes from being absolutely worthless, down 90% plus. And as long as you held the trade, don't set a stop loss. In Team Roar, we do not use stop losses, right? The most you risk is your max risk per trade. That's the most you lose. If the contract expires worthless, it goes to zero, never goes green, then you lose your max risk per trade. Just as another trader loses their max risk per trade, except in their situation, they get stopped out. We don't get stopped out. We just ride the contracts. We have the entire day for it to go green. As long as we're right about the trend, eventually it's going to go in green. So you don't even have to time trades perfectly. And like I said, we go far out, but not far enough to where it's not going to go in the money. So the timing isn't going to matter in a sense, right? And even if we, did enter a trade and it dropped 90%, you might think, oh, the timing makes sense. If you timed it better, you could have been in here. We buy a second strike. We'll buy a second strike on the side of the trend, and both of the trades will print if we're right about this side of the trend. So if we don't time the first trade perfectly and we're right about the trend, we'll buy a second strike later into the day, and the second strike will be timed near perfectly, a much better entry, and it will be the biggest percentage gains. But both of the trades will still print, right? Because we're not going far out enough to where it's not going to go green if SPY comes back to life within our overall favor. And another thing that we do is we set profit stops. So when we are green on a trade, we set a profit stop. And the reason why we set a profit stop is to ensure that we don't go green to red. And another reason why we set a profit stop is we figured out a way how to increase our wins, how to double to triple our gains without taking on extra risk. When we're up a little bit, 5, 10, 20%, when we're up quickly on a winner, we tend to go up a lot, 100, 200% plus. So when we're quickly up and we see a reason to add, we add to the win. And when we add to the win, we set a profit stop. So when we're adding to a win, think about it as a way to double your gains. And think about it as a way as adding an extra R multiple, except you're not risking an extra R multiple because you're setting a profit stop. If you set a profit stop, it's impossible to go green to red on a green trade. So we quickly add to a winner, one small move within our favor, set the profit stop, secures the new position size. Increasing the position size doubles the triples the gains. Sometimes the trade will just keep on going up multiple 100%, and then eventually we get profit stopped out where we move our profit stop to, not where we set it, because as the trade works in our favor, we keep on moving the profit stop up. And then if the market has a massive move against us, we get profit stopped out where we set the profit stop, not where the market moves and flushes instantly if that were to happen, right? So in that particular situation, you can double to triple your gains just by adding to the winners. And when you add to a win, all of a sudden, a 100% win turns into a 200 to 300% win. In worst case scenario on a loss, it's a 100% loss. So we figured out a way to safely double to triple our gains on a win. And we also figured out a way to not lose on a loser that's down over 99% because it has the entire day to come back to life when we trade the trend. This is the beauty of trading the trend, not setting the stop loss, buying cheap, low risk, 0 to 8 far out of the money options. This is the absolute best way to be trading. For those of you who trade with real money, there's no better asset class to be trading than far out of the money 0 to 8 options, which is why our entire group has mastered this. And we're focused on, creating the best system, mastering the best overall, curriculum and style of trading with, 0 to 8 options. That has always been our number one focus, 0 to 8 options, but, far out of the money. We go far out of the money, the cheapest, lowest risk trades, low barrier to entry, not just for small accounts, but for rich people who prefer to pay less, risk less, and make more. You can literally make more by putting in less. And you can put in more in a safe way by adding to a win and setting a fucking profit stop. So In terms of Team Roar has been around for fucking years. Like I said, every single day you're going to see we're ranking top 100 companies out of tens of thousands of companies worldwide on WAP.com. We are ranking in the top 100 absolute best. And, if you would like to trade alongside us and join our secured private network, it's the first thing down below in the description. I can assure you, in terms of a real-time zero-day options trading alert system, this is the best system you will see available on the market. You will not find better trades, and more importantly, you will not find a better system. I would question anyone, especially who's trading zero-day options, if they have not developed a system. If you are trading zero-day options and you've not developed a strategic system, to trade in zero-day options, you are extremely behind in terms of your overall, trading career. You are extremely behind, and there's a lot of development and evolution that people need to go through. And that's, one of the things that G-Roar accomplished, within Trader Society and within Team Roar. He came along and he created a fucking system. It's one thing to be an amazing trader and use technicals and know how to trade, but it's another thing to, use the best asset class that allows you to create the best system. And that's something that G-Roar did. He literally created the best fucking system possible, from that mechanic sense of pairing it with far out of the money zero-day options on SPY. And no stop loss. Max risk per trade is one of the methodologies. That's one of the methodologies that I use with the overall system. And, adding to winners and setting in profit stops. That's why I'm saying, man, far out of the money zero-day options, they give you the most options within the market. So if you're just seeing someone just doing buy and sell alerts on options, they don't have like a fucking system, man. If you're trading an asset class that gives you the most options to create a system, you should be looking for something that has a fucking system paired with that. Zero-day options are the most advanced way of like creating an overall system in that sense of trading naked zero-day options. But it's just understanding that they truly allow you to do just about anything you want in terms of like up and down direction, just trading one way. And they're just so cheap and low risk. They give you the leverage and they just give you the ability to, not use a stop loss, add to winners, set profit stops, have that leverage, make the biggest gains. They give you all the fucking options in the world, which allows you to create unique trading fucking systems, right? So it's the first link down below in the description if you would like to join us and trade alongside us. Like I said, man, we're ranking top 100 every single fucking day inside of Team Roar. And we have a massive community, a massive network. It's the first link down below if you'd like to trade alongside us. You'll be surrounded by many experienced traders. You'll see Canman. He's been with us for years. Very experienced in terms of everything that he's putting out within the chat. Lots of value, lots of curriculum. Very well experienced trader. You'll see, man, when you join our community, you join our group, you're going to see there's multimillionaires inside of here. There's, plenty of traders who've been with us there are hundreds of traders who've been with us for years who have a lot of experience, And like I said, man, in terms of, Team Roar, just so you guys know, if you go on the WAP.com website, we are ranked top 13 out of the option trading groups. But like I said, one of the things that makes our group different out of the other option groups is, first of all, nobody fucking prints like us. That's already very, very clear. Like, who the fuck prints like us? But like I said, we actually have a system, and our system has the best fucking trades in the market. And it's not just the best trades, it's a strategic system, risk management, psychology, learning how to trade. It's a very well strategic developed system. Like I said, no stop losses, max risk per trade, risk management 101. Like I said, WAP, they posted an article about us. If you want to read it, it's top 13 within the top 20 best option trading groups. But like I said, what makes ours different is we have a real-time zero-day options trading alert system. This is not just options trades. And we have, you're going to see the best community, the best secured private network on the fucking planet. So if you're serious about trading alongside us, is the first link down below in the description. When you guys are ready, it is strongly recommended that you do join Team Roar. It's very recommended, especially anyone trading zero-day options or SPY, that they join us at least once, to see if this is the right group, the right shift for you. Because I'm telling you, man, we have a lot of traders. Some of them it takes them a long time to figure out. Some of them they start to get it quick, but Once they get it, they realize this is the right format for them and they stick with us and it fucking works and it fucking prints. So it's the first thing down below in the description. I can assure you, in terms of the overall trades, you're not going to find better trades available within the market. These are the absolute best trades, and they're not just buy and sell. These are not just trades. This is a strategic system where you can learn and grow from and become self-sufficient. And like I said, there's plenty of ways to use the system. Some people use they use us as confirmations for their own trades, to see if they're in alignment with our style of trading. They use us as confirmations. Some people use it in terms of the curriculum. We provide, G-Roar and I, we both provide key levels and game plans. So if we make a trade and they see it's entered at our key level and game plan, they can use that as a confirmation along with what it is that they're learning and experiencing in the group and on their own, along with the videos as confirmations of how we actually trade the game plans. If you use the time frames, use the curriculum and stuff like that. So it's a way to become self-sufficient. It's a way to learn. It's a way to grow. Like I said, man, it's the first thing down below within the description if you would like to trade alongside us. And with that being said, I'm going to be signing off. Make sure you guys use this game plan. It's going to work amazing. I will see you guys tomorrow.